Alrighty, cherubs. So today we're going to jump up north. So we started the Renaissance in Italy, but the Renaissance doesn't stay contained in Italy. It happens all over Europe. And so we're going to go up north and do the early Northern Renaissance today. It's going to look a little bit different up north than it does in Italy. Now, remember, in Italy, they're impacted very much by humanism, by a rebirth of the classics. Up north, they're going to be very much influenced by the invention of oil paint. So it's really the medium that's going to change them rather than the subject matter. Okay? They're still going to be doing a lot of things very, at least for the moment, in a very medieval style-ish. But the look's going to change. Okay, because of the medium. Let's get there. So sometimes science changes art, and science is going to catch up to art here in the form of the oil paint. Okay, science is going to give the artists up north oil paint, where they're going to start to mix pigment with linseed oil or flaxseed oil. Okay, and what that allows them to do, what oil paint allows you to do, is it allows you to work for longer. Remember, tempera paint dries very, very quickly, and the colors can be dull. In an oil painting, because they're suspended in oil, the pigments are going to become translucent. All right? And so you can do very, very, very thin, micro-thin layers of oil paint and build up on top of each other, one after the next. And it's going to be this really beautiful, beautiful effect. And while you're painting with it, it's very rich and buttery, and it stays wet for a long time. It takes a long time to dry, so you can work and rework and add on to pieces for a very long time. So oil paint is going to change the way that they start to make art. Okay, they're also going to start to use lenses up north. They're going to start to use mirrors and making projections and casting imagery and then painting that way. It's not that they became better artists, but their things are going to become so hyper real. All right. So they're going to be using science to make and math to make their pictures so much more real and lifelike than they ever had been before. And you'll see what I'm talking about. Go ahead and give this. I'll link this up at the top. Why is oil paint so expensive? And it's still expensive to this day. Why is that? And so this video will give you a good explanation. About that. So here in the early Northern Renaissance, we're going to be talking about these three pieces here today. All right, we've got the Merode Altarpiece, we've got the Isenheim Altarpiece, and we've got the Arnolfini Portrait. Now, an altarpiece, it should be noted, is usually a triptych. It's a three-part painting that goes and hangs above an altar in a church. Okay, so you can see that so two of our three are already religious pieces. So we can see that religion is still a very huge part of Northern European life. Okay, and this other one is a secular portrait. So this is a portrait of Robert Kampen. Notice the turban. We're going to be seeing quite a few turbans up here in the north, and they're going to be doing that because they think it's fun and exotic. Like the people in the Middle East. There it is. So up in the Netherlands, so the northern countries, so we're going to be up here today in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Germany. That's where we're going to be today. And this piece, this is called the Annunciation Triptych or the Merode Altarpiece. Either would be fine. And it's attributed to the workshop of Robert Kampen. Robert Kampen being the artist. Now, when you look at this, you can see that, again, in many ways, it appears a lot more real than what we've seen previously in the Gothic style. But as you look at it, so we can see, okay, this bench is extending. They're using linear perspective to shape this room, but it's not quite correct. It's like the top of the table kind of bends down towards us. So the angles are a little bit off in this picture, but you can see that that is kind of the point of where they're going to make it look like an actual room, okay? But the math isn't as important up north. Down in Italy, remember, the math is going to be super important. That formula for making that art is going to be super duper important. Up north, that's less important, okay? Up north, they're going to give us a plethora of details. Just this endless amount of details. So what's happening in this triptych, again, a triptych is a 3-part painting as opposed to a diptych, which is a 2-part painting. So this 3-part painting. We have the, over in the center, usually the most important part, is the Annunciation. This is the announcement of the angel Gabriel to Mary. And let's click on this and get a bigger, there we go, a bigger image of this. So we've got Gabriel showing up to Mary and announcing to her that she is going to be the mother of the Son of God. She's reading a book. They've completely caught Mary unawares, as she's just sitting here in her living room. Now, it's very important to note that this living room is done in the way that it's just a Northern European house. They haven't put Mary in some Holy Land. They imagined what the Holy Land looks like. It is in a house, in a wealthy house in Northern Europe. Okay, and that's going to start to become a thing where people start to populate the holy stories, the sacred stories from the Bible, and put them in their familiar surroundings. Okay, so let's zoom in again. So here's Gabriel, and you see how beautiful this is. And again, look at the detailing in this center panel here. You've got the stained glass windows up here. So Gabriel is showing up, and look at the details in his sash, or their sash, excuse me. So good. So good. And the gold trim on Mary's robe. Oh, so beautiful. Okay, now here's the thing about Northern painting is there's a multiplicity of symbols. They're going to throw in so many symbols into your face so as to be unavoidable. You can't avoid all the symbolism that's happening here. Okay, so Mary is sitting here reading. Now there is a snuffed out candle that is wafting smoke off into the air. Okay, that represents the smoke that's wafting off from the snuffed out candle. That represents how the Holy Ghost will overlay Mary and she will become pregnant through miraculous means. Okay, not in the traditional way, but the Holy Ghost will overlay her just like smoke in the room overlays the space. Okay, so that's symbolic of the Holy Spirit, how Mary becomes pregnant. We have the kitchen vessel here at the back. We have this, oh, look at this, cobalt and white vessel. On one level, this picture here. This is a nod to the wealth of the household because this is coming from China. Okay, these people have traded and are merchants and are able to obtain this very wealthy vase, porcelain and cobalt from the East. But it contains lilies. It's holding lilies that sprout and grow, and a lily is a nod to it's an Easter flower. It's a nod to the resurrection, of the impending resurrection of Jesus Christ. And that's why Mary is wearing red and not blue, because she is not yet the Queen of Heaven in that sense, because she has not yet given birth to Christ, but her red robe nods in that way towards his sacrifice. Okay. You're getting this figure right here who is carrying who's shooting in through the window. This is carrying the cross. This is Christ, the Spirit of Christ coming to come within her and so that she will become pregnant. Okay. Now she sits in front of the fireplace, and the fireplace is important. And the fireplace has this shield here, this guard against, so embers and stuff don't come flying out. But it also represents the gate of hell has been closed. And that's why this bench, and that's why Mary's there, that she closes the gate of hell by giving birth to Jesus Christ. She closes, the gate of hell. Okay, and that's why this is here. And in other, not this composition, but in other compositions, you'll see her very purposefully positioned where the screen becomes much larger and is rounded so that it acts as a halo behind her head. So it's very, very cool in that sense. Now, if we scoot to the side over here, we can see this is Joseph. And outside we have a Netherlandish town out here in the background. Now, this is Joseph, the betrothed of Mary. And he's a carpenter. And what he's doing is he's creating mouse traps.
Good morning, special ed teachers. Just a reminder, we're having a meeting this morning at 10 o'clock. That meeting has been moved from the cafeteria to the media center. So please make your way to the media center and let's have a good discussion. Thank you. Counselors are also invited.
Mouse traps. He's making mouse traps, rat traps to catch the rat, to catch the devil. Okay? Now, you'll notice that Joseph is an old man and Mary is quite young. And there's a very specific reason for this. In medieval and Renaissance and Baroque art, Joseph is going to be shown as an old man. And the reason for that is that so that you don't ever get the sense that you're visually being told that they have never had sex. Okay? Because that's gross. So, old man and a young girl, gross. So, no, that Joseph is acting as a protector to Mary, as a guardian, but is not her marriage partner in that sense, that they do not share a bedroom together. Okay? And that is the visual clue of that belief. Okay. Later, when we get into Protestantism, they're going to read the Bible differently. But in the Catholic tradition, that's why this is happening. Okay. Now, on the opposite side, you have the donors, the patrons, who are paying the workshop of Robert Kampen to produce this altarpiece. All right. And you're going to see here that they are approaching on bended knee the front door of Mary's house. All right. To come and pay homage to Mary. So obviously they were not contemporaries of Mary, but they wanted, and this becomes a common practice as well, where you're going to pay money to have yourself included in the sacred scene to show your piety and your belief. Now notice that they are within a walled garden. Okay, that has roses. It's a rose garden that's walled off and protected. And that is also symbolic of Mary, that Mary is the rose without thorns. We've talked about that before. Mary is the rose without thorns. Oh, how a rose ere blooming is talking about Mary. She's the rose, and she's enclosed in this garden. She is a virgin. Okay, her virginity is kept intact. So you're often going to see Mary within a rose garden for that reason. Okay, so we got our patrons here who are coming and offering their adoration to Mary. You can see again how soft and how smooth, and you can see how there's still a little bit of the a retention of some of the proportions of the medieval period. It's not completely rejected, and again, what you can do, they're exploring what the richness of what you can achieve with oil paint. The metal looks like shiny metal. The fabric looks like fabric. The velvet looks like velvet. The hair looks like hair. It looks absolutely real in that sense. So they're more interested in the multiplicity, the layers, the depth that you can produce with the oil paint, the symbols you can cram into it, the details, rather than having a mathematical perfection like down in Italy. Okay, so this is the Merode Altarpiece, the Annunciation Triptych by the workshop of Robert Kampen. All right, I will link this up onto the description above. Okay, so here we have, again, your notes. Go ahead and pause the video and jot some of this down. Okay. All right. Now, Jan van Eyck, he is credited, though apocryphally, with painting or with inventing oil paint. All right. Notice the turban. Again, they think it's exotic and from Asia. Ooh, how exciting. Cultural appropriation. Okay, so that's why he's wearing a turban. Jan van Eyck is going to be giving us in Bruges this painting, and this is called the Arnolfini Portrait. And this picture, let me zoom in here, is going to be hotly debated through the history of art. This one is going to have, again, like I said, a multiplicity of meanings and symbols, but those symbols are debated. And so the actual function of this piece is unknown and hotly debated and has been written about endlessly in the history of art. Okay? And the reason that it is because, again, we know there are symbols and we know what some of those symbols mean, but we're not entirely sure. It can be read in a bunch of different ways. And so that's where the symbols, the kind of the breakdown happens. Now, for example, you can see that he's not wearing his shoes. This is Giovanni Arnolfini and his wife Giovanna. They're Italians and they're merchants and they've moved north to Bruges to make their fortune, which they have. He's not wearing his shoes. That's an indication of sacred, like you're on sacred ground. Okay? The dog represents, and it's a little toy dog. It doesn't guard the house. It's a wealthy accoutrement that rich people can afford. So on one level, it shows the wealth of them, but on another level, it also shows fidelity. We get the idea, the concept of Fido. You know, the dog being named Fido means faithful, loyal. A dog is loyal, so it becomes a symbol of marriage fidelity. Okay, she is. I mean, look at the fur and the details in the rugs and the nail holes. It's so beautiful, and she's not wearing her shoes either. They're clasping hands. There's a mirror here on the back wall with these glass beads that and the little broom and the details on the frame here, and the chandelier with the one candle, again symbolic. Now, Giovanna Arnolfini, pregnant, that's one way to read it. Another way to read it is that it's just the fashion, and it's a gross fashion. It's an ugly fashion, but there it is. It's an A-frame dress, but okay. But she's got way too much fabric. Let me zoom out. Way too much fabric to she has to pull it up so that she can stand there because she's just cascading in this velvet with this fur-lined velvet, and it's just there, and because she's rich. We've got oranges from Asia, okay? Expensive fruit. Look at the little roundels here in the window. Again, it's just the detail that Van Eyck pours into this piece. Now, here's something that you need to notice. Here's the mirror is the reflection, okay? And in that reflection, he shows their backs, but then he also gives us this little tiny self-portrait. This is not a big painting. This is a very tiny painting. It's only, 3 feet tall. It's a small picture, but he gives us this little tiny self-portrait, and he says here, Jan van Eyck was here. And he's doing that as kind of a joke. Of course he was here because he's painting it. Now he's got around here the sacred story of the Passion of Christ in these roundels surrounding this mirror. Okay? So again, we know and there's this bed, okay, which was an expensive piece of furniture, this very rich bed in the front room of the house, but it was just to show off their wealth. Okay. So what you need to know is just that there's a multiplicity of interpretations of this piece, and it's chock full of symbolism, but those symbols mean different things depending on how you read it. And that's what you need to know, really. I'll link Sister Wendy up above so you can give her a watch. Okay. And again, our notes. So we've got, again, this richness, and that's really what this, so we've got a secular piece here. This isn't a sacred piece, it's a secular one. And it's showing us and talking to us about those, their wealth, okay? Now our last piece for today is Matthias Grudenwald. He is going to be in Germany, and he's going to be painting this. This is called the Isenheim Altarpiece. And what you need to know is that the Isenheim Altarpiece is going to open up. So we've got, again, a triptych. It's a polyptych. It's a polydic. Okay, it's got multiple parts. So it's this triptych, but then it has this third part down here. And this third part down here has the lamentation. Now, if we click on this so you can see it just a little bit better, you're going to see that the crucifixion here is really kind of gross and gory. That it's Jesus is twisted and the cross is twisted and it's really, really violent. What's happening here, I mean, he looks like he's made out of gnarled wood. He just is, again, this is coming out of that medieval tradition. So they haven't completely let it go yet, like they did in the South. So you're getting Mary and John, Mary Magdalene, John the Baptist, and Christ, the Lamb is Christ himself. And you're getting the Lamb bleeding here into the chalice. And the Christ figure is covered in these sores. Okay, now this altarpiece was designed for the chapel of a hospital in which these people were suffering from a disease called St. Anthony's fire, in which they didn't know it, but it came from eating moldy rye bread. Okay, the rye got moldy, and it had this really painful, it produced these really, really painful sores and these hallucinations, and it would really, this terrible, terrible disease. So it's called St. Anthony's fire. And so he shows Jesus suffering with that disease because this hospital is designed for those people. And so you can see that Christ is suffering like you suffer. So here's a lamentation scene down below. Off to the sides, you get a depiction of Saint Sebastian, an early Christian saint, pierced with arrows, and he's always going to be pierced with arrows. And then off to the other side, you're getting Saint Anthony, the guy for whom a saint who is tormented by demons, and he's the guy for whom the disease is named. All right. Now, the thing about this altarpiece is that it opens up. And so you get on these other panels, you get a depiction of, again, the Annunciation over here. So typically it was closed, but on special occasions it would open up. And so you get this depiction of the Annunciation again. Here's in the center, the Nativity, and here's the resurrection, Christ in Mandorla, and glowing and rising from his tomb. Oops. And let's go. And then it opens one more time, in which you get the Venerable Bede, who is teaching St. Anthony, and you get more saints sculpted this time, and the other piece folds down, and then you get the torment of St. Anthony. Okay, so you're having this multiple images here in this altarpiece. So you can see kind of how big it is in this rendering, and in this one it'll show you how it opens up and how it moves and changes. All right, so the Isenheim Altarpiece by Matthias Grudenwald shows us Christ in suffering and ultimately triumphant. Again, to show the people Christ suffers like you suffer. He gets it. So again, it's pulling back to that medieval tradition. All right. And here we go. And those are our pieces today for the early Renaissance. Next time in class, we're going to talk the High Italian, and then we'll get to the late Northern Renaissance. Well, how does the Protestant Reformation change art? Okay, so these are our pieces for today. I hope you enjoyed this little trip, and we'll see you next time.